Getting leads and signing up clients for your PT business are two things that really we think of as going hand in hand. And they do to some degree. But what we do have to acknowledge is that just because something is a great source of leads doesn't necessarily make it a great source of clients. Those leads aren't all created equal. Some will convert, some won't. Some will take a long time to convert, some will convert more quickly. So in today's episode of the Fitness Business Insights podcast, I want to run you through 5 of the best ways I'm seeing my clients pick up PT clients right now. I get the opportunity to work with lots of PTs and fitness businesses and see what's working for them across the country, all different types of locations, all different types of facilities. And then I can bring that information to you so that you can get those insights and plug them straight into your business. So without further ado, let's go straight into number 1, which is something that maybe isn't that obvious to as many people as maybe it should be. So method number 1, this doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best. I'm doing these in any sort of order, really, but I wanted to put this one first just because this is a good example of lead generation and getting clients being connected, but also not always being correlated, because this first method that's working really well for my clients right now doesn't generate the most amount of leads by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it generates very few leads. However, when these leads come through, the conversion on them is extremely high. I was speaking to a client just last week, and his last 3 coaching clients, his last 3 PT clients on his highest premium packages have all come from this one method. But it's not that it's generated him lots of leads. It's actually only generated him 3 leads, but all 3 have converted and they've all signed up to the highest package. So what is it and why is this the case? Well, the method that's generating those kinds of leads for the businesses I'm working with right now is quite simply Google search. And I know that won't blow anyone's minds in terms of being anything new or anything exciting, but even in this AI-driven age that we're now living in, where people expected Google to just die and disappear, of course that hasn't been the case. And even when people say to me things like, Matt, if I search on Google now, I don't even click on any of the links because it just gives me an AI summary at the top, which is entirely true. But when it comes to people searching for services, if you go into Google today, for example, and type in personal trainer near me, or strength coach near me, or Pilates class near me, it doesn't do that. It still generates the results the way it used to do. It doesn't generate some sort of AI overview. It shows you the Google Maps, the Google businesses, anyone that's paying for those advertising spaces at the top of the page. It's still very much generating that information in the way that it used to, where you can see the businesses, you can see the reviews, you can see the location and all the information and those things. And the businesses that are still taking this seriously in terms of having a Google business profile, collecting reviews every month, updating information on there, adding a few new photos here and there, listing one of their products or something on their profile, just to show Google that this is an active business and it's dealing with new clients all the time. Those businesses are getting ranked well, so that when people in the local area search, which might not be thousands and thousands of people, but when they're searching for those kinds of terms, they're already a long way down that buyer's journey. They're not just considering getting in shape. They've reached the point where they've already decided, I need to get in shape. And more importantly, I need some help. I need to do it properly this time. I've decided that I want a coach or I want a PT. They're already at that stage now where they're like, I just need to find the right PT for me. So when they search and you're one of the ones that comes up and you've got, pictures, can see the facility that you work at, they can see where you're based, they can see that there's parking available, they can see all those amazing reviews and that social proof, you stand out an absolute mile, which is why some of my clients that are getting these kinds of leads through the door are converting at pretty much 100%, because by the time someone walks in the door, they've already decided that they want the service and they've already, through Google's representation of you, they've already built an element of trust. They're already looking at you thinking, this is the go-to person in the area, clearly, because they're being ranked so highly by Google and I can see all these reviews, okay? So simplest way to make sure you show up in these kinds of results is, number 1, If you haven't done so already, you really do need to go and set yourself up with a free Google business profile. It's simple to do. It sort of anchors you to a physical location so people know where you are. Collect your client reviews on there on a monthly basis, update the photos and that, as I've mentioned. Make sure you've got that. But then more importantly, you then need other assets that link away from that profile, because what people like to do is find someone and then do a bit of a deep dive on them. So for example, my clients that are doing best with this method have their website listed on there. Now, a lot of personal trainers still don't have a website. Everyone that I work with has something online that acts as their digital home that we make sure is really professional and really showcases who they are and what they do. And it's something that we prioritize most in regard to my business, Fitness OS. We like to make sure that all coaches have that professional digital home for their business. So someone finds you on Google, but then they click over to your website and they have a look on there. And again, there's more testimonials. There's more professional photos on there. There's even more detail about how you work and the processes involved. There's maybe a mention of the different types of services you offer. Then they might end up clicking somewhere else and ending up on your Instagram profile or whatever social media you prioritize. And again, there's content for them to consume there. So very quickly, they trust you because of what Google provided them. And now they're stacking up these touch points, and then they'll be ready to contact you and come in and book in for a consultation or to take part in your front end offer. So Google search really is something that I still believe in as being a priority for people that have in-person businesses that are based at a physical location, that serve sort of a local audience of even just a few thousand people. That's enough. This definitely works as a method. So make sure that if you aren't doing so already, you get those things in place. And if you do have some of those things in place, make sure you stay up to date with them and keep them well maintained. This next one is an interesting one because it's about leveraging your potential competition to actually become one of your best sources of clients. And again, this is similar to the first one in that it's not going to be one that generates tons and tons of leads. That's not what we're interested in. What we want is people that are going to sign up for your service and become really good clients for you. And this one, again, is sort of a bit old school and really quite basic, which is why so many people just ignore it. They completely miss it. Most people in your local area probably aren't leveraging this in the way that they should do, which means that for you, this presents a big opportunity. So this second approach that I want to discuss with you is to team up with other professionals that do exactly the same as you or run relatable services. So let me just give you a quick story that highlights how important this can be. I was speaking to one of my clients yesterday called Scott, and he mentioned to me that there's a female PT in his gym that he's good friends with. But she's at a point now where really she only wants to work with other females. She works with a lot of women and deals with women's health and things of that nature. But a lot of the women she works with want their husbands to get fit and healthy as well, or their partners or their male friends. And she's got no interest in training them. So the last few that have come her way in terms of referrals, she sent them straight over to Scott. And Scott then gets to benefit from the fact that he's been essentially referred some business off the back of someone else's results, but all of the trust in that is already established because this other PT is essentially vouching for Scott and saying, I'm not the right trainer for you. He is. That's who you need to go and work with. And I've had a similar thing with other people where other PTs in the area maybe don't work with certain types of clients, so they need someone to refer out to, but they don't often know who to refer to. Same thing goes for people like sports massage, physiotherapists. These are all sort of very relatable services that often need to pass people on to other professionals. And then we've got the ones that are slightly less relatable in terms of like-for-like service, but do have similar clients to the type of people that we would work with. And these are things like your hair salons, your nail and beauty places, your sort of more premium barbershops and things like that. If you can get your business linked with some of these businesses and maybe even train some of the people that work in these businesses or that own these businesses as a way of, getting a result for that person, establishing yourself in the local area, trying to almost become, locally famous, quote unquote, just to get your name out there as quickly as possible. this is a great way to do it because you're just tapping into those existing networks that these people have already got. When they start speaking about you, it is essentially a very solid referral. It's someone that's worked with you, that knows you, that likes you, that trusts you. And when they mention your name to other people that they've been cutting hair for the last 10 years or whatever, you're essentially borrowing all that credibility and all that established trust so that when that person comes to you as a referral, they're very, very likely to convert. And again, as I said with the first one, you're not going to get tons of these leads. It's not about getting 10 leads a week through something like this. You might get 1 or 2 a month, and that's fine because the conversion rate is high. And then you're also going to get 1 or 2 a month from the first option, and you'll get 1 or 2 a month from the next option that we're about to discuss. So it's not about having one singular way that generates tons of leads. It's about having a few different ways that generates really high quality leads that turn into fantastic clients. That's exactly what you want, and it's exactly what your business needs. So without further ado, let's now move on to number 3. Now, number 3 is an interesting one because it generates more leads than number 1 and number 2 that we've already been through. But if you're not careful, the conversion can be much lower. So with this one, I do recommend an additional step to try and help that conversion and help you avoid getting frustrated very quickly with this method, okay? So method number 3 that we're going to touch on is using already established local Facebook groups online to get in front of your target audience. The way I want you to think about this is it's essentially a free Facebook ad. If you want to pay to advertise on Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, what you're essentially trying to do is say to Facebook, here's some money, so here's £10 a day. I want you to show my messaging to people within this certain area. And you can sort of target that local area based around where your business is. Maybe it's a 5-kilometer radius, a 10-kilometer radius, whatever it is, okay? That's essentially what you're paying for in the most basic sense of that advertising space. Now, with a local Facebook group, you can bypass that somewhat because if people are in your local Facebook groups, you know that they're already within that catchment area. So now all we need to do is get the right messaging in front of them. And unlike an ad, we don't have to waste money testing what works. You can do 1 post a week in these local Facebook groups and be really consistent with it. And over time, build that into a system where you know what people respond to, what they don't respond to, when to maybe just provide value and provide credibility and social proof, and then when to maybe be a bit more direct about, here's how to get my help, here's how to get my support, okay? So the people that I work with have a very set system to follow when it comes to this. Now, I'm not going to touch on that here. That's something very specific to the people that I work with. So there's a little bit of a system there that's exclusive to them. But just to give you a basic idea, you're going to want to join maybe 3 to 5 groups in your local area. You're then going to want to make sure that you're aware of when those groups allow you to do sort of business related post or promotional related post. There might be a certain day of the week that they allow it or a certain day of the month. So in some groups, you might only be able to post once a month. In most groups, you are going to be able to post every single week, but it will need to be on a set day. Your job is to then build a bit of a system around that in terms of the first week of the month is going to be a certain type of post. Second week of the month is going to be a different type of post. Third, fourth, same thing over and over again. You're going to want to put in there a good mixture of your own background and your own story, client social proof, testimonials, case studies, stories about people in the local area that you're working with, and then also insights into the type of day-to-day problems and things that you're helping people solve through your service. If you do that, and then you include the right kinds of call to action, which is what we're going to touch on just in a moment, then you will find yourself generating a good number of leads. Now, I did mention leads tend to come in at a higher volume via this method. However, the conversion rate is lower than the first two. So to try and improve that conversion rate and to try and help you know who to prioritize in terms of follow-up, because we don't want to necessarily have 20 people respond to a Facebook post and then you're following up all 20 and not knowing which ones are serious or not. What I recommend as an additional step here, if you don't already do this, is to actually use a front-end offer in your business to highlight quickly who are the people that are most likely to convert and actually take this seriously. So what this means is rather than just booking someone straight in for a consultation and then trying to sign them up into your £200 a month, £300 a month package or whatever it is, we give them a small step to try first. It might be 3 or 4 sessions that they do as a trial at a reduced price. It might be a short-term 21-day program, for example, and it's usually at a price point that's much more affordable. It might be 50 quid, it might be 75, it might be 97, it might be 150. Depends on you, your business, etc. This is something I've spoken about a lot in other episodes, so I'm not going to go into detail here. But we essentially want to offer that as the call to action, because in these groups, we need to know who's serious, who is able and ready to invest, and who actually wants this type of service. Someone's not willing or able to pay 50 quid to try your PT service, they're never going to sign up to a £300 a month package. So we just concentrate on the people that are willing to do that. That's the best way to apply this method, in my view. Otherwise, it's going to be no different than walking around on the gym floor, offering free consultations and free testers left, right, and centre, and not knowing who are the more serious people and who aren't. Okay? So use the local Facebook groups, but then also tie into that additional step of promoting your front-end offer, and then you can prioritize the people that are willing to do the front-end offer. If you do this Facebook group method properly and consistently, you can probably sell between 3 to 5 of your front-end offers a month just from those Facebook groups. Of that, you're going to convert about 60 to 70% into clients. So again, this starts to stack up. When you think about the other 2 methods, we can get 1 or 2 leads from method 1, 1 or 2 leads from method 2, and then another maybe 3 to 5 leads from this method, but with a slightly lower conversion. This is how you start to add a good number of clients to your business on an ongoing basis. Method number 4 is very closely related to number 3, but just takes things up to the next level, slightly more advanced. But what it does do is provide a little bit more consistency and a little bit more in terms of data and feedback and things that you can measure so that you know what's working and what's not. And that's to do paid local marketing. So method number 3 was about skipping that paid step. And, you know, if you're still in that really early stage of growing and building and trying to gain some revenue for your business, that's a great opportunity. But once you sort of get to the point where you're more established and you maybe want to feel like your lead generation is a little bit more predictable, maybe a bit more on autopilot, I still recommend doing the organic stuff because that always helps improve the result of the paid stuff. But then where you can actually do a better job of converting better quality leads or better quality clients is through that paid marketing. And I've got a number of clients that use this now to predictably generate at least 1 lead a day or 2 leads a day in their business, depending on their advertising budget and depending on what volume they need for their business. This is typically your small gyms or people that are working with higher volumes of clients because they work on a group basis. They need more leads, they need more clients because bigger numbers also mean that turnover is often a little bit higher than maybe in a smaller business where you're only working with 20 people. And we just need to make sure we've got that constant stream of people coming into the business, retaining them for as long as possible so that the business continues to grow. So when it comes to something like a paid media strategy, I still think that it's worth having all the other basics in place first. A paid media strategy for local advertising is not going to paper over the cracks of stuff that's not already in place. Because, for example, if I see your advert, I might click through onto it, but the chances are, because you'll have done this yourself online, you'll want to go and find that person or that business away from their advert as well. You might see the ad and think, yeah, this looks great, but then you might try and find them on Google. You might try and find them on Instagram. You might try and find their website. So if you haven't got some of these already established things in place, sometimes that marketing budget isn't working as hard as it could do for you. You're actually leaking leads and potential clients out of that business. If I see your advert, but there's no digital presence of you online, for example, if I go to your Instagram page, you're not posting any organic content, or I haven't seen your face or heard of your business in the local area from any of the local groups, or no one else is talking about you, or if I click through to your website, there's not really anything there. It's just shoddy and unprofessional and basic at best, or it's just a Linktree link or something like that, then the ability for the adverts to do their job is diminished because you're not doing your job in terms of having the foundations in place. So you can look at the first three things we talked about as being really good for building foundations. And then number 4 is a layer that you would build on top of that. And as of the time of recording, what I'm seeing with the businesses that I work with that are doing this kind of advertising at the minute and spending money on this regularly, what we're seeing working really well is very much client-centric content, i.e. it's the client doing the talking, it's the client that's on screen, it's the people in the gym going through a session and things like that. Occasionally, we will feature the coaches in some of the marketing and in some of the content, but they can often see the coaches anyway in the organic stuff or on the website. But what works really well in terms of getting attention from ads is when a client is sort of in the middle of a session or something like that, and they get asked something and they answer a question, or they give a bit of feedback, or they tell their story, or they give the reasons why this has worked and other things haven't worked. That sort of very real, very raw, very sort of not overproduced type of content is doing really well. It looks natural on the Instagram feed and the Facebook feed, works really well on the stories feed as well. It looks natural there. And the conversions on that are very, very good at the moment. So these things change all the time. By the time of recording, this is something that's working really well. If you do want to go down that paid media route, I would recommend reaching out to someone and working with someone that knows what they're doing. Otherwise, you can very quickly waste a lot of money without really getting anywhere. You'll just spin your wheels with it for a long time. And this leads us on to method number 5. Now, I don't think I can ever see myself recording anything related to lead generation or getting clients without including this last one in the list. I have put it at the end because it's something I've spoken about before. And I know that some of you will be fed up with me talking about this. But having been a gym floor PT myself, having done that for a long time, having worked with hundreds of other PTs, fitness businesses, coaches of all shapes and sizes in different niches, this never stops being one of the best ways to generate not just leads, but actually very high quality clients. And now more than ever, I cannot emphasize enough why this is a superpower if you are willing and able to do this. And it's a superpower for 2 reasons. Number 1, no one else in your gym is doing this. And if they are doing it, they're doing a terrible job of it. And number 2, people now more than ever are open to being approached and spoken to by other people. In fact, the data shows that people are actually craving human interaction more than ever. So if you're not giving them human interaction, you're missing a really big opportunity. So if you haven't figured it out already, method number 5, in terms of what I'm seeing work best at the moment for getting clients, is gym floor or any sort of in-person conversations and interactions. Because let's be honest, we are in the people business. People buy from people. They're not buying your brand. They're not buying ABC Fitness, unless you are already a large established brand. You're not competing with Nike and people like that. They want to buy from you, the person behind the business. They want to get to know you and, you know, what your vibe is, what you stand for, what you stand against, what it is that you've got as your experience, not just in the industry, but in life as well. Yeah. All of those things make you unique. And it means that when you speak to people, they get a sense of all of those things and whether or not you're going to be a good coach for them. So if you aren't doing this, here are a few things that I would do just to make this really simple. Number 1, set yourself some basic targets. Set yourself a little goal of speaking to maybe 3 to 5 new people in the gym every day. Yeah? Just a simple, hi, how you doing? Morning, how are you? I hope you're okay. Going up to someone and saying, is everything all right? Is there anything I can help you out with? Walking past someone and saying, those trainers are fantastic. Where did you get those from? Making someone smile, lighting up someone's day, being helpful, being supportive, just being that person in the gym that, unlike everyone else, feels approachable. I can walk into any commercial gym today and I reckon I can go and ask 100 members, have they ever been spoken to by a PT? And I reckon 90% will say no. And that for me is a huge problem because these people are already in the door. They are your best target audience. They are in the facility where you work and they get to see you with your clients. They can potentially speak to you themselves face to face. They can then go home and follow your content online and watch videos and see other bits of social proof and stuff. They can find you on Google. So what I'm saying is these people have got more potential than anyone else to build up lots of touch points with you in a very short space of time. If I'm an online coach and I want to build up a lot of touch points with people, first of all, I've got to create some content and hope that someone sees it. And then when they see it, I've got to hope that they follow me. But they might not follow me. They might not follow me until they see a second piece of content or a third piece of content the algorithm decides to show them. And it might not show them those pieces of content in the same week. It might show them over a 2 or a 3 month period. Then when they eventually follow me, I've got to hope that they see more of my content and more of my stories and download a lead magnet and do this and do that. Compare that to what we've got the potential to do with someone in the gym. You can go into the gym today, say hello to someone and strike up a really good conversation. By the end of that conversation, they know your name, you know their name, you know a little bit about where they're based in the local area, how long they've been coming to the gym, etc. You can say to them, look, if you want to get some, free help and support, I recommend you go and follow me online. They can go and follow you when they get home from the gym, or you can get them to follow you while they're in the gym. They're now seeing your content when they're not in the gym. When they're in the gym, they're getting to speak to you. We're building up loads of touch points very, very quickly. They're getting to see you with your clients. They can see your marketing around the gym as well, or on the gym's website. We can really speed up the ability to get to know someone, get them to like us and trust us, build up that rapport, and move them in through that buyer's journey far quicker, okay? It's a huge advantage that I just don't think people truly understand why this is so important. If you understand where we're at now with buying cycles, buyer behaviors, and how long some of this stuff takes, being able to physically stand in front of someone and come across really well and sell yourself, not by saying what you do or what your credentials are, but by just showing that you're a great human being, this is truly just a massive advantage that people aren't really using to any degree in which they could do. I had a story recently from one of my clients who mentioned that spoke to a guy in the gym, just general chit chat, nothing about PT. And then when he walked away later on, the guy had been over to one of the boards, seen the PT that he'd been speaking to, noted down his number and sent him a WhatsApp and said, hey mate, thank you for the chat today in the gym. First time anyone's been and approached me. I've just seen your offer on the board. Is there any chance I can book in for next week? He booked in next week, did the front end offer, signed up the week later, trains twice a week, right? So that's a £300 a month client, if not more, off the back of one conversation because no other PT had ever bothered to speak to him. It is a bit of a numbers game. You will need to obviously get to know a lot of people and speak to a lot of people, but it compounds. The more people you speak to, the more people look out for you in the gym. They pay attention to when you're with your client. They pay attention to when they can see people getting results. They pay attention to your stuff when they see it organically on your Instagram, but also in those local Facebook groups that we've talked about. They then pay attention if you do any paid marketing because they see you, they know you, they recognize you. It all starts to piece together, which is the final thing I want to touch on in this episode today. Everything that I've spoken about in this episode works as an interrelated system. It's a bit of an ecosystem for lead generation and, more importantly, client generation. You can do any one of the 5 as a standalone thing, but when you piece them all together, that's when I believe the magic truly happens because they start to help one another. It's almost like they're giving each other a leg up and then they reach further. You get bigger results, you get better results, okay? So take any of them one by one, maybe build them one at a time if you aren't doing these already, but remember that they work best as that integrated system where they all feed one another. That's all for today's episode. If you want to find out any more, I recommend heading down to the description below where there's a few links and a bit more information about how to hear more about the show. But until next time, take care of yourself and I'll catch you very, very soon.